All right, we've got a real puzzle on our hands today. On one side, you have governments pouring billions of dollars into what they call critical minerals, basically saying our entire future depends on them. But on the other side, the market for these exact same minerals has absolutely collapsed. How can both of those things be true at the same time? So, what's really going on here? Let's dig in.
In this quote, it just nails the confusion, right? For years, the story was that lithium was the new white gold. It was the bedrock of the entire green energy revolution. And yet, the market is telling a completely different story. A price crash so sudden and so deep, it's left miners and investors completely blindsided.
And here's where it gets really wild. You have the US and Australia in October 2025 announcing this massive $8.5 billion partnership to secure these minerals, treating it like a matter of national security. At the exact same time, the market is in an absolute freefall, bankrupting the very companies that are supposed to be mining this stuff. Yeah, this is way more than just a simple supply and demand problem. There's a much bigger game being played.
Okay, so first things first, let's rewind a bit and talk about the promise. Why did everyone get so hyped up in the first place? Because this wasn't just market speculation. There are some powerful, very real strategic reasons why these minerals suddenly became so important.
Just think about it. These things are everywhere. They're the guts of the batteries for more than 20 million new EVs hitting the road this year. They're what make those massive grid-scale energy storage projects possible. And it's not just green tech. They are absolutely essential for advanced defense systems like the AUKUS submarines, and for the thousands of new data centers that are powering this AI boom. Bottom line, you can't build a future without them.
And that is exactly why you're seeing governments throw around these huge, eye-watering numbers. That $8.5 billion deal between the US and Australia, that's not a simple handout to miners. It's a flashing neon sign that these countries no longer see these minerals as just commodities. They see them as fundamental national security assets critical for their economic and military survival in the 21st century.
But, while all this strategic government money was flowing in, the actual market, well, it hit a brick wall. Hard. The whole white gold rush came to a screeching, painful stop.
So that leads to the big question, right? If these minerals are so incredibly vital for everything, from our cars to our national defense, how on earth did the market get this so incredibly wrong?
You have to see these numbers to believe them. The scale of this collapse is just wow. Back in late 2022, a single ton of lithium would have set you back $80,000. Fast forward to August 2025, and that same ton is worth less than $9,000. That's a nearly 90% plunge. That's not a correction, that's a complete wipeout. And look, this isn't just about numbers on a chart. This is causing real-world pain. A major player, Mineral Resources, went from making money to a jaw-dropping $904 million loss. IGO is desperately trying to get out of a major refinery project. Even a giant like Albemarle is getting called a value trap for anyone thinking of buying in, scoring a 0 out of 6 on important financial health checks. The industry is just hemorrhaging cash.
Okay, so how in the world did we get here? Well, believe it or not, it's a classic story that we've seen in commodity markets again and again for centuries. It is a textbook example of a capital cycle boom and bust.
It all comes down to one great big miscalculation that pretty much everyone made. The entire industry was betting on this explosive hockey stick growth in electric vehicle sales. So what did they do? They ramped up mine production by an insane 192% since 2020. But the reality was that EV sales growth, while still good, was much more of a straight line, and it's even started to slow down. So what you ended up with was a classic glut, a tidal wave of supply crashing into a demand that just wasn't growing fast enough.
And this brings us right back to that core contradiction we started with. If the market is drowning in supply and miners are going broke, why in the world are governments not just staying in, but doubling down and pouring billions more into it? Because the answer, it turns out, has almost nothing to do with profit and loss and everything to do with geopolitics.
Okay, look at this. This chart is the key to the whole puzzle. See, digging the rock out of the ground is one thing, but turning it into the high-purity battery-grade material, that's the real bottleneck. And right now, China has a stranglehold on that process. They refine 60% of the world's lithium, over 70% of cathode materials, and a mind-blowing 95% of synthetic graphite. Relying that heavily on one country, a strategic rival, for Western governments, that's a red line. It's a risk they are just not willing to take.
So you have to get this. The goal here isn't profit, not in the short term anyway. It's about control. What the West is trying to do is build an entirely separate, perilous supply chain from scratch, one that can't be threatened or controlled by China. It's been called a permanent contest, and these governments are willing to bankroll projects that lose money if it means securing their own supply in the long run.
But building this security blanket, de-risking the entire supply chain, well, that comes with a seriously high price tag and some very real and pretty controversial trade-offs.
The best way to get your head around this strategy is to think about the old gold rushes. The folks who reliably made money weren't the prospectors hoping to strike it rich. It was the people selling them the picks and shovels. In this case, governments are bankrolling the whole shebang. They're funding the miners digging for the white gold and the companies building the refineries. Because the ultimate prize isn't profit, it's having a secure industrial system they control.
But the hidden costs here are huge and, frankly, pretty controversial. First off, taxpayer money is being used to keep mining projects afloat that the free market would never support. Second, if you intentionally cut out experienced Chinese companies, the cost to build these projects can jump by as much as 50%. And get this, to make things happen faster, environmental permits are being rushed through, affecting public lands and sites that are sacred to indigenous peoples. And maybe the most controversial part is that the critical list is now being stretched to include things like coal and uranium, which, legally speaking, probably shouldn't be on there at all.
So, what's the takeaway from all this? Well, what we're really watching is a fascinating, high-stakes, head-on collision between cold, hard market logic and the long-term, slow-burn game of national security.
And that leaves all of us with the final, multi-billion-dollar question. Is all this government spending a brilliant, strategic investment to secure the future? Or are we all just watching taxpayers create the world's most expensive, government-backed bubble? It's a massive bet, and right now, nobody knows for sure how it's going to pay off.